There is a certain kind of rich you almost never see. No supercar, no designer logos, an old coat, a cheap watch, a house you would drive right past without a second look. And yet this family has been wealthy for 150 years, through wars, through crashes, through depressions that wiped out everyone around them. This is old money. And old money plays a completely different game than the rich people you see on the internet. Today, the secret rules of that game. Let's start with the curse that is supposed to destroy every fortune. There is an old saying, and versions of it exist in almost every culture. Shirtsleeves to shirtsleeves in 3 generations. The idea is simple and brutal. The first generation builds the wealth. The second generation spends it. And the third generation is right back in work clothes, broke. And the data mostly backs it up. Study after study finds that around 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and about 90% lose it by the third. So here is the real question. If 90% lose it, how does the other 10% hold on for centuries? To see the difference, look at 2 families. The Vanderbilts were once the richest family in America. Richer, adjusted for inflation, than almost anyone alive today. Cornelius Vanderbilt built an empire out of railroads and shipping. When he died, he left more money than was held in the entire United States Treasury. And within just a few decades, it was essentially gone. His son doubled the fortune. And then the next generation spent it. They built the most enormous mansions the country had ever seen. They threw parties that cost millions. And when the family held a reunion in the 1970s, not a single Vanderbilt was a millionaire. The great mansions were torn down or sold. They had all the money in the world. They just did not have the rules. Now compare that to families like the Rockefellers, who are still wealthy generations later. Not by luck, by design. So what are the rules the survivors follow? Rule 1. Do not hand your children money. Hand them a structure. Old money almost never leaves a giant pile of cash to an heir. They put the wealth inside a trust, a legal structure that owns the money and hands it out under strict conditions. The heir can live off it, but often cannot touch the core, cannot sell it, cannot gamble it away in one bad decade. Lawyers call it the dead hand. The founder, still controlling the money, long after they are gone. It is how a fortune survives a foolish grandson. Rule 2. Own things that last. New money buys things that go to zero. Cars, watches, boats. Old money buys assets that quietly compound for centuries. Land, farmland, real estate, and ownership in real businesses. Land does not crash and vanish. It sits there, it gets rented out, and it slowly makes its owner richer while they sleep. There is a reason the oldest fortunes on earth are usually sitting on top of the oldest real estate on earth. Rule 3. And this is the one that trips everyone up. Be invisible. The internet rich want you to see the wealth. That is the entire point of it. Old money wants the exact opposite. They practice what is now called stealth wealth. Quiet cars, no logos, understated homes. Partly, it is taste, but partly it is strategy, because if no one knows how much you have, no one comes for it. Not con artists, not lawsuits, not resentful crowds, and historically, not the taxman. Visibility is a cost. Old money simply refuses to pay it. Rule 4. Marry, network, and repeat. For centuries, the wealthy treated marriage less like romance and more like a merger. Old families married other old families, folding 2 fortunes into one and locking in alliances that lasted generations. And they sent their children to the same handful of schools and clubs, not just for the education, for the address book. Because at that level, the real opportunities do not come from a resume. They come from a dinner party. Rule 5. Raise heirs, not spenders. The families that last do not just protect the money. They train the next generation to protect it too. They teach their children early that they are not the owners of the fortune. They are caretakers. stewards passing it to the next link in the chain. Many of them run what is called a family office, a private company whose only job is to manage the family's money, taxes, and investments, quietly for decades. The heirs grow up thinking like managers of a dynasty, not winners of a lottery. And Rule 6 is the uncomfortable one. Old money does not just play the game. Over time, it helps write the rules. The very wealthiest families have long used foundations, trusts, and armies of lawyers to shape the laws around inheritance and taxation. This is documented history, not conspiracy. Entire sections of the tax code exist because people with enormous fortunes had the resources to influence how those laws were written. Charitable foundations that keep wealth and control inside the family for generations. Loopholes wide enough to drive a dynasty through. The result is a system where, past a certain amount, money does not just grow, it starts to protect itself. So step back and look at what actually separates the families that last from the ones that vanish. It was never really about earning more. The Vanderbilts out-earned almost everyone who has ever lived and still lost all of it. The difference was structure. Trusts instead of cash. Assets instead of toys. Silence instead of flash. Alliances instead of luck. Heirs raised as stewards. And enough quiet influence to keep the rules on their side. And here is why this actually matters for you. Because you do not need a railroad empire to borrow these ideas. Pay yourself first and lock it away somewhere hard to touch. Own assets, not status symbols. Stay quiet about what you have. Build the right relationships early before you need them. And think in generations, not in paychecks. You will never be a Rockefeller. But the game they played to last 200 years? The rules are simple. They just never wanted you to know how simple they really were.